let's move on tonight to some other great news in F1, and that's the F1 driver deals and driver moves. And we are deep into silly season here in F1, where you're hearing other drivers moving to other teams or rumors of other drivers moving to other teams. And now we're starting to see confirmation. And, you know, I'll tell you what, that started off that domino effect was our topic number 7 that we're going to cover, and that's Kimi Raikkonen retiring. Once Kimi Raikkonen said that he was going to retire, it started to be a domino effect of drivers saying, well, here's where I'm going to be for 2022. And we've just seen a couple of moves here announced just over the last few days and another one announced just this morning. So what do you got on it, Pat?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you just said, that it's so interesting how much of a domino effect there is when there's movement. Excuse me. When there's movement in F1 racing, because like you mentioned, Raikkonen, announces he's done at the end of the year. He's leaving Alfa Romeo. He's retiring, and then that gives an opening to Valtteri Bottas, who has been such a good teammate to Lewis Hamilton over the last 5 years with Mercedes, and even Hamilton's come out and said he's the best teammate I ever could have asked for. In the way that he helps him out during races, and as awesome as it probably is to race with Mercedes and to race with one of the greatest drivers ever, at some point, a competitor like Bottas is going to say, I want my own thing. I want to be the top dog. And that's what he wants right now. So he's going to be with Alfa Romeo next year. And then because he's leaving Mercedes, Mercedes is now promoting George Russell, who's, there's been some debate as to whether or not he's been ready. But I know Mercedes, recently has said, over the last 3 years, we've really liked how Russell has developed. He's hit all the marks that we've wanted him to hit. And we're ready for him to come up next season. So I think it was almost like a mutual parting of the ways with Bottas and Mercedes. And then Bottas even then just came out and said, if they only offered me a 1-year deal, I wouldn't have taken it anyways. I still would have left. So Bottas wanted to leave if he wasn't going to get at least a 2-year deal. And now Mercedes is saying, we have Hamilton for 2 more years after this season. We want to start this younger driver, George Russell, teaming up with Hamilton, learning from Hamilton over the next 2 years, so that whatever happens with Hamilton after that, we now have a young guy with 2 years of experience with one of the greatest drivers ever to now be able to take over for Mercedes. So I think this actually works out really well for Mercedes. Then because George Russell left Williams, now Alex Albon has been promoted again to Williams. And Alex Albon, if you watch Drive to Survive, it was a tough spot for him at Red Bull. He had to perform almost flawlessly to keep that spot. He didn't. Just seems like a really good guy. So I'm just happy for Albon. I'm happy he's getting a chance with Williams, and it's going to be fun to watch him race. But I'm sure there's going to be more fallout from this as well, because now at Alfa Romeo, they don't know who Bottas is going to be racing with next year. So there's just a lot of different components to this, and a lot of pieces are going to fall into place as the season goes on.
Yeah, there's still a few seats that are undecided, and I would think over the next few weeks we'll get to see the rest of the grid get filled up with the 2022 drivers. But yeah, let's get to these moves here, which were amazing moves, big news in Formula One with these drivers here, especially let's start with Valtteri Bottas moving on from Mercedes and going on to Alfa Romeo. And like you said, at Mercedes, he was obviously the clear-cut number 2 driver behind Lewis Hamilton, arguably one of the best drivers of all time, if not the best driver of all time, with arguably Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher. You have to put him up there. And so to have that as your teammate in F1, inevitably you are always compared to your teammate first off, and you're always racing your teammate. So, man, that's such a tough teammate to have to go up against. But I want to really tip my hat to Valtteri Bottas. I loved him. I think he's done a great job over these last 5 years. 9 wins, 54 podiums, and 4 constructors titles that he helped contribute to Mercedes-AMG F1 over these last 4 to 5 years. So he has just done an amazing job as Lewis's teammate, helping push this team to the front. And we've said many a times when Lewis Hamilton maybe stumbled and wasn't there to win the race, well, Valtteri Bottas was there to pick up the pieces for Mercedes-Benz and to get the wins usually. And like I said, 9 wins, 54 podiums. That is an amazing job with his time there at Mercedes. So I really think he's done a great job, and he really has been Lewis Hamilton's best teammate and has done a great job at Mercedes. And I really want to thank you personally, Valtteri Bottas, for what you've done for F1 and what you've done for Mercedes. And I've enjoyed watching your time there. And I'm now even more excited to now see him go be the driver number one, a clear-cut driver number one, the leader of the team at Alfa Romeo. And I think that's going to be exciting for not only F1 fans, but obviously for Valtteri Bottas stepping into a new role as the leader of the team. And the rumor around the F1 paddock is that potentially Alfa Romeo might be switching engines too, and switching engine suppliers. Currently, they're supplied by Ferrari. Rumor has it that they might be switching to a Mercedes-Benz engine in 2022. Now, wouldn't that be classic for Valtteri Bottas to come to Alfa Romeo and have a Mercedes-Benz engine to basically rely on and have as your crutch? So I honestly think that is going to be big news that we're going to have to cover here in the offseason as well, if the rumors are true. But I think it is true. I think Alfa Romeo is going to be replacing their engine and switching to Mercedes, specifically because they're bringing in a Mercedes driver that has all that experience with the engine, is going to be able to help them propel their new car in this new age of regulations with this new Mercedes-Benz engine. And I think Valtteri Bottas is going to do a great job leading that team. But like you said, it started the domino with Kimi Raikonnen retiring, saying that he was going to step away from the game, and we're going to cover that next. But then Bottas goes over to Alfa Romeo, and then that opens up the door for the promotion that I think most people wanted to see. Honestly, probably last year, I think most people wanted to see it, but rightfully so. Valtteri Bottas had done enough to earn another year in that Mercedes-Benz seat. But George Russell getting promoted from Williams to Mercedes-Benz, and I think this is the biggest news, honestly, of the promotions and of the driver moves. Having George Russell move to a car now where he can, he's promoted to, one of the best cars on the grid, where he's going to have a chance to go and maybe fight Lewis Hamilton, fight Max Verstappen, and Charles Leclerc for a title. He's really one of the best drivers on the grid. We got to see it last year in 2020 at the Sakir Grand Prix when he substituted in for Lewis Hamilton when Lewis Hamilton tested positive for COVID. George Russell had a masterclass drive and pretty much had a chance to win the race multiple times if it wasn't for a mix-up in tires from Mercedes during a pit stop and then a right rear puncture, I believe, that he took when he put on a set of red tires that really cost him that Grand Prix. Otherwise, he would have clearly got his first win as a Formula One racer. But now, getting promoted to Mercedes, a spot that he wanted so bad, a spot that the fans wanted him to have so bad, I think this is going to be exciting news. Lewis Hamilton welcomed him to the team with a huge post. And, producer Ben just popped it up right here where, George Russell has followed Lewis Hamilton since he was a child. So now he's going to get to drive next to his childhood hero, two British drivers on, arguably the best team in Formula One right now, propelling this team in the new regulations. So I'm really excited to see what Mercedes can do with George Russell and Lewis Hamilton in 2022. But then also you brought up now Alex Albon getting a chance to come back to F1, getting promoted from the Red Bull reserve driver seat to getting into the Williams seat now. And he's going to come back to F1. And I think rightfully so. I think he should have, stayed on the grid. They just couldn't find a spot for him last year. And, it's been brought up that, you can't feel bad for Red Bull drivers because Red Bull has 4 seats that they can stick drivers in, more than any other team on the grid right now. And so you couldn't feel bad for Alex Albon if he didn't get a seat, because Christian Horner could have stuck him in either 2 of those Red Bull seats or the AlphaTauri seats that are controlled by Red Bull. Instead, they wanted to go with Perez and Verstappen, rightfully so, obviously. And then AlphaTauri said they're going to stick with Gasly, rightfully so, and then Yuki Tsunoda because he's got the power and the backing of Honda. So it's just really one of those things where I think Alex Albon actually lucked out at this point because he's not going into a Red Bull seat. He's going into a potential Williams seat that has a Mercedes engine. And there was rumor that Mercedes might even block that move. But lucky for Alex Albon, they didn't. And he's going to be back on the grid. And I do think he rightfully so does belong back on the grid of F1. So I think it's exciting moves here. And we still got more moves to go.
Yeah, no question. And you mentioned Gasly. We saw him get demoted from the Red Bull number 2 seat a couple of years ago, and he's been awesome ever since. I mean, he's been, I think he's won at least once, if not twice, over the last couple of years. And this year he's had a bunch of top tens. He finished fourth. What was it, last week or the week before? So he's been awesome this year, especially considering where he's racing from. So, you have a guy who recovered after getting demoted. It's such a tough thing to hear that you're not, they don't think you're the guy. And then, you kind of get inside your own head. But I think, we could see Albon do something similar where he's in a situation where he can say, all right, you missed out on me. I'm this new hotshot young driver too. And then have a couple of seasons like Gasly's been having over the past couple of years. So it'll be interesting to watch him over the next couple of seasons as well. Folks, if you like this show, you're watching it right now on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page. That's Comeback Sports on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, Comeback Sports. And then all the cut-ups that our awesome producer, Ben Kudo, puts together after the show, that'll all filter to your YouTube channel. You don't have to go search for it. It's just right there in your subscriptions.